everybody. It's Chris Doucher for geeknerdnet.com. I am so excited and so pleased to be joined by the CEO of Boom Studios, Richie. Hello, Ross. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Hey, thanks for joining this little Canadian website, GeekNerdNet, where our focus is creator-owned books for years. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's get right into it. I mean, I was going to kind of save this for the end, and I don't mean to start off on a downer, but we're all in it, and we were just talking about it a couple minutes ago. The pandemic, business, everyone's shifting. The word shift, the word new normal, all those buzzwords we hate now. How have you and how's Boom sort of weathered the tide? There was that time last year where everyone was sort of like, what are we going to do here? Where are you guys now? And I mean, you're cranking out books on a regular basis again, which is awesome. So,
well, the two statistics that I would give you for 2020 for us is that our sales in comic shops went up 22%. And during that time, our on-time shipping record went from 97% of our product shipping on time. It went up to 98% of our product shipping on time. And to jump back to the first statistic, which was sales for us was up 22%, the thing to remember is that Diamond didn't ship product for 8 weeks,
right.
Which is 2 months, which means generally speaking in monthly publishing, you've got 12 slots a year. So we got to 22% with only 10 of the slots that we would typically have 12. So it was a great year. And
yeah, those numbers are astounding. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, we got there because of the fans, and we got there because of the retailers. And
Sure.
when the shutdown hit, I just firmly believe that you have a choice about how you approach your life. And we could sit there and decide that we were going to run and hide, or we could decide that we were going to face the situation and do everything that we could. And there's a belief that we have at Boom, and it's a belief that I think every comic shop owner has, whether they can articulate that belief or not, which is it isn't just a place that has things for sale. It's a community center. And I know I've been stopped by fans in a shop to settle an argument about who would win in a fight between Superman and the Hulk. And that doesn't happen when I go to any other stores. It doesn't happen when I go to Barnes and Noble. It doesn't happen when I click on something on Amazon. And that is one of the reasons comic shops are so great. You can be married and maybe you're married to a comic book fan. My wife has read a ton of comics and she's even written some, but she does not want to talk to me about who would win in a fight between Superman and the Hulk. And, I work in the comic book business, but most people don't. And you probably can't have that conversation where you're working during the day. But the one place that you can have that conversation is in a comic shop. And so it's more than a place to buy comics. It's a hub. It's a place to gather. It's a place for culture. And we really believed that and have really targeted that as a strategy with Boom, is to support the community. And when the pandemic hit, we went straight to the retailers and we made our product returnable, and we announced all of the product was returnable through the rest of the year. And we were the first publisher to get that aggressive, to go that far out, to do that much product. And then we supplemented it with one per store limited variants on all the major releases. And we just got aggressive all the way down the line. And what we knew when the shutdown hit was that we had no idea the dynamic that we were in. And if I was a retailer, when Diamond would finish the shutdown, were fans going to come back? Who knew?
Yeah.
So if you're asking me as a retailer to extend my neck and my financial livelihood into the unknown when I have no assurances, I'm not going to do that. But if you come to me and you say, we're in this with you, we're both in the same situation, we don't know if fans are going to come back, So what we're going to do is we're not going to put you on the hook for that. So if you order product, you're doing it basically in concert with us, and we're going to take the risk with you. We're not going to put all the risk only on you. And cooperatively as a team, we're going to bet on the fans, because we think at the end of the day, when they can go back to shops, that they're going to support shops. And that's what fans did. And they went and they cleared out their pull and hold lists, and they bought trades that they didn't necessarily have any plans on buying. And they bought off of retailers' websites. They bought in claim sales. They bought, and they bought, and they bought. And they gave most retailers, from what I can see, a better year in 2020 than they did in 2019. And so that was just the philosophy and the approach, is we bet on the fans and we bet on the retailers. And I think that's what's responsible for having such a big year.
Yeah, you know what, that's wonderful, and I really appreciate you shedding light on that right off the beginning. I just now want to jump back for a second, and I mean, again, congratulations, and thanks for supporting the, like, across North America, across the world, that take in Boom Studios work as rightly they should. And I do want to jump back to you for a second. So, CEO of Boom Studios, tell me about the start. I've actually read some of your work, and I've watched your interviews over the last year or so, and talk about how you got your start in the entertainment industry. And why don't you jump off from there for people that may not know that background?
All right. Well, it's kind of long and complicated, so we'll see how I do.
Okay.
So I went to school at the University of Texas to get a film degree, and I moved out to Los Angeles to work in the movie business, and sort of worked odd jobs as a production assistant, driving movie stars around and directors and things like that. And the work was very inconsistent, which is the life of a freelancer, and that instability was kind of wore on me. And I went to a convention. I've always been a comic book reader since I was 6, and I was a pretty hardcore collector by the time I was 12. And so I went to a convention and got into a conversation with someone at the booth for Malibu Comics, and they offered me a job. And I decided that it would be nice to have a 9 to 5 to pay some bills and get my credit card debt back under control. And so I didn't really consider it a career. It was always a hobby for me. And so then I worked at Malibu, which was an extraordinary experience I'll always be grateful for, and it changed my life. And I worked with a tremendous number of industry legendary creators, Barry Windsor Smith and Walter Simonson, Steve Englehart and Howard Chaykin and Gil Kane. And, the list is probably 15 Hall of Famers, Jim Starlin, amazing people that were all terrific to me and very kind. And then Marvel bought Malibu, and I saw that as a turning point to go back to the entertainment business. And so I went and became a script reader. And so that's a process where scripts are submitted to talent. I ultimately became the script reader for Arnold Schwarzenegger. And Schwarzenegger would get more scripts than his agent could read. And so my job was to filter through them. And if a storyline was under development, like End of Days, for instance, if new drafts were written under the director's guidance, my job was to tell the agents all the little minute differences in the dialogue and the characterization and the scene structures that had changed. So that was a great experience and taught me a lot. And what I would do is go option comic book material, because I had gotten to know creators through my Malibu experience. And I would go set those projects up as a movie producer. And nothing that I set up as a movie project got made during that time period, but it was an excellent experience to get to know the studios and the executives that work there and understand how the entertainment business worked. So I was starting to get older, and I met a girl, and Keith Giffen called me up and said, and Keith Giffen, in case you don't know, is a writer and an artist. He is the co-creator of Lobo, and is famous for a run on Legion of Superheroes and the funny Justice League that was a huge hit back in the 80s and the early 90s. So he called me up and he said, "Hey, I'm drawing a comic book at Image and you're going to write it." And, well, that's crazy. And I tried to talk him out of it because I wasn't a writer, but I couldn't. So we ended up doing this comic book together. And during that time period, the guy who inked the second issue was Dave Elliott. And Dave had a legacy comic book publishing company called Atomica. And that's spelled Atomeka.
Huh.
And they had an anthology called A1. And the anthology was basically, it published Alan Moore and Grant Morrison and Garth Ennis and a bunch of really young, hot creators. So anyway, to make a long story short, he wanted to bring A1 back, and I decided to help him do that because I had enough business experience from working at Malibu on the marketing side that I could call up Diamond and handle all the sort of business part of it. And the first thing that we were soliciting had Alan Moore story in it called the Bo Jeffrey Saga. So I figured, nobody ever had a failure with Alan Moore. So sure enough, the first solicitation worked, and I started to do my own projects underneath the Atomica banner, which included Hero Squared and Zombie Tales. And Keith Giffen came to town and said, you should go out on your own and publish and do the whole thing yourself. And Hero Squared and Zombie Tales were kind of my training wheels editorially to do my own stuff. And so I branched out with that and listened to Keith and started Boom. And that was in 2005.
Amazing. It's amazing. It's
So-
amazing. I mean, I love that. I love the history there. And I love for anyone who's watching this new to it will go back and look through and try and find all this, which is the fun. I mean, that's what we do. We're all comic nerds anyway, right? So we're gonna do it. But I do. Thanks for on yourself. I mean, it's a fantastic resume, and obviously to date. I mean, look at. I'm gonna and jump in at any time, please. And I'm gonna miss a ton because there's a ton at Boom Studios. Obviously. You've got your licensed products, like Power Rangers, but you've also got other books that are hot, flying off the shelves. To be cliche, why not? Some of these killing children. The Last Witch, created by Conor McCurry, fellow Canadian. I interviewed him last month, and I've known him over the years through conventions. Great guy, fun
Cool.
book.
Yep.
And then you've got We Only Find Them When They're Dead. I'm on Prop Alert. I'm on issue 5. If you can see, did that come up? There it goes. It kind of showed up. Whatever. It's a pandemic. 7 Secrets, and then obviously I'm going to talk about kind of the big one. And I'd love for you to touch on any of these, and any that I might have left out by accident. Please forgive me for that. Obviously, you've got the Matt Keanu Reeves Berserker. I mean, I've got on my pull list. So
Thank you. Thank you for the support.
of course. I mean, I'm one of 655,000 sold already.
It was 615. We're
Oh,
over,
sorry,
we're over,
615.
we're over 615. Yeah.
Let's say 700. No, but yeah,
You're right.
please. I'll stop rambling on. And you take it from there, please.
Well, look, it's been an incredible outlay of tremendous creators that have agreed to work with us. And, we're absolutely thrilled. The first book that really kicked it off was Once and Future. And that's Kieran Gillen, who was coming off of having a big success at Image with a book called Die. And we paired him with Dan Mora, who's an artist that had worked with us very successfully on a Grant Morrison series called Klaus.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan was very close to us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And through that process, Once and Future went through 8 printings of the first issue, which was just crazy pants. And it was nuts. This was back in 2019, and we had offered the first issue returnable, and then the orders had come in really strong. And as soon as we had gotten the orders and had set the print run and sent it off to the printer, we got hit by a bunch of retailers who all said that they hadn't ordered the book, that they had been snoozing or sleeping or whatever. And so I'm sitting in, the office with Philip Sablik, our president of publishing and marketing, and saying, how are we going to go to print on a second print and pick a number that's going to be right when we have a tremendous number of copies of the first print, a real record breaker for us, that are all returnable. And how insane would it be for us to send off this second print and then get hit with all these returns from the first print?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And, but, you know, we did it anyway, which I look back on, what the hell was I doing saying yes to that? But I did. And then the orders for the second print came in twice as high, I think, as the copies that we had to fill it. And we went to third print, and that came in twice as high. And, you know, and that all happened before the first print went on sale. And
Wow.
so it just went completely bananas. And through that process, then, you know, Something is Killing the Children hits. And that turns into this, you know, very similar, goes through 8 printings for the first issue. Actually, I think when we just did the local comic shop day version, I think it went to a 9th printing. And the numbers on that first issue through all the various printings is, I think, north of 80,000 copies.
Wow.
It's absolutely nuts. And
Yeah.
so the, you know, those two series really fed into each other and built and built and built. And then we had a couple of other really cool, mind-blowing series. Folklords, Red Mother came out towards the end of that year and really performed really well. And then during COVID, one of the things that we saw, because we were paying attention to the retailers, was that a lot of the publishers had pulled product back. So Marvel, for instance, had been worried because they had heard from retailers that the retailers were worried about getting product that they couldn't pay for. And so Marvel really pulled back on releases. And DC was listening too, but DC had a more moderate approach where they took about a month's worth of comics and they spread it out over 2 months so that retailers wouldn't have too big of a cash bill. And so all of a sudden, you know, if you think about that 2-month time period, you had no Marvel product and you had a month's worth spread out over 2 months for DC. And so when people started to reopen and those fans started to show up, there wasn't much to buy. And there's a real dedication on my team to shopping in stores weekly. And so we were talking to each other saying, you know, hey, I just went to the comic shop and what did you buy? And well, I didn't buy anything. And did you buy anything? And, you know, we're trying to find something to buy to support our retail partners.
Yeah.
And so here comes James Tynan with Punchline, is building up and is so huge with Batman. And I'm looking at the fact that we have this James Tynan series. It's a series of original graphic novels. It was a 3-volume series called Wind. And the entire first graphic novel was finished. And it was scheduled to come out in November. And I thought, you know what? We ought to take that comic and we ought to break it into chunks and serialize it and push the release of the graphic novel back, because there's still time to do that. And my staff said, well, that's great and everything, but like, you can't do that. And I said, why? And they said, well, you know, you got to fill out the paperwork. You got to email it into Diamond. That's a 30-day process. Diamond has to take it, allocate it, put it into the catalog. That's a 30-day process. Catalog's got to be printed, has to be circulated, has to go to stores, has to go to fans. That's a 30-day process. Then you got to, you know, so it's this 120-day turnaround time to be able to process paper orders. And I said, why don't we just skip all that? Why don't we just do it digitally and do the final order cutoff, which is called FOC in the business? Let's just go straight to FOC and let's just go to retailers and say, hey, we're doing this crazy thing. This is COVID. Everything's nuts. And if this crashes and burns, so be it. But it looks like to us, you need hits. And what, you know, we've got this James Tynan project and Punchline's huge. And we basically had 5 days to market the book before we had to go print it. And it turned into the best-selling. It outsold Once and Future #1 first print. It outsold Something is Killing the Children first print. So we got our new record smasher, and that thing went to second print. I think the Monday after the Wednesday on sale. Right. And then here comes Seven Secrets. Seven Secrets #1 shatters the wind sealing, and then we only find them when they're dead, blows that out of the water. And and then, by then you get to local comic shop day and Something's Killing the Children local comic shop day version takes that to 80,000 copies. And so
Wow.
it just
Wow.
insane. And we haven't been able to keep Something is Killing the Children Volume 1 or Once and Future Volume 1 in print. And I'm doing Comics Pro. We're having a virtual Comics Pro this year, and I just did a retailer AMA Ask Me Anything, and one of the keys was, hey guys, can you keep hey Boom, can you keep these graphic novels in print? And we said, we want to. When we go to the printer, we print 9 months worth of product. Ordinarily it would sell in 9 months, and it sells out in 3 weeks.
It's
So
incredible.
again, it was for us, it's been a growth of 22%. And so some of the craziness with it is, it taxes your systems and it strains you because you're growing so fast. And, it's just a real process for us to keep up with it. I mean, we're nothing but happy and grateful for it. So
For sure.
it's a great, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Wow.
A lot
I
of
love
fun.
it.
It can be stressful.
So what's the timeline on, and forgive me for not having the answer on my end, on books like Berserker and other books that you have coming out through the year? Are you pushing any more to come out earlier, or are you going to wait on some and say, you know what, let's actually keep this train going and hold off for a bit?
Well, Berserker's funny. It's going to come out March 3rd. And what's happened with Berserker is the order, and this is insane that I'm going to say this, but I'm just going to kind of condense all the information down into a soundbite here for you.
Sure.
The printer couldn't handle it.
Amazing.
So we have an excellent printer. They're brilliant. They're amazing. We're thrilled with them. It's a great company. But it's 615,000 copies of a book. And literally, that is the best-selling original creator-owned book since the launch of Image, back when Spawn #1 and Wildcats and all that Youngblood came out. I mean, we don't have clear records of that stuff that's publicly available. So I'm sure that my good friend Jim Valentino, who was, one of the founders and an extraordinary guy. I mean, I think Image is such an incredible company. I'm sure that Jim will smack me and set me straight. But it's a lot. Since we've been keeping records on things like Comicron since 1996, it's the biggest selling original non-Marvel, non-DC comic. So I think it might, yeah. Anyway, it's big. So the printer,
I love it.
Basically we had to push it back because of the printer, and I felt bad because we had pushed it back a couple times. And the thing about it is we're doing foil covers for it. And the foils take 2 weeks additional time to manufacture because of the special paper. And so one of the things that we hadn't factored in was that the foils got ordered so well that they ran out of foil paper. And so now you have to source during a pandemic, which, for your audience, this is real technical stuff, okay? But overseas trade has been a disaster during COVID. So, now you're looking for who in the US and who in Canada has this specific grade of foil, right?
Yeah.
And you can't source it out of Asia because it'll take too long. You'll miss all your windows. I mean, it's nuts, right? So that's gotten pushed back to March 10. And I didn't want it. It was supposed to be a February book. I really wanted the book to come out because I know people have really been excited about it. So, I was a little bummed about that. And then 2 weeks later, the foils will hit because the extra additional manufacturing. And, there's a huge winter snowstorm that's happening, which I've been watching, which is going to create complications for supply chains. So it's very exciting. I just want to get the book out. I want fans to check it out. I think you're going to get a huge kick out of it. I will tell you this, with no spoilers, it is a hurricane freight train of a book. It starts on page 1 and it does not quit. It punches you in the face.
Love
Uh,
it.
Keanu pitched it to me. The first meeting that he and I had, I was sitting on a couch and he stood up in front of me. He put his shoulders back and he just said, "I just want to just punch through dudes. I just want to like punch all the way through a guy's chest. I just want to punch through a guy's face. And when I say punch through a guy's face, I mean take my fist and like put it through a guy's head." And I was like, okay, sounds great. We
That's
spent
great.
another 3 hours talking about it, but it is that the first issue is that it is
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves punching his way through dudes. And there are some action sequences in it that are going to make your jaw drop. I still laugh about them because they are so insane and incredibly fun to read. So
Nice.
get ready. It is not a all ages book. And
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the language. It is violent. It is, I know John Wick is violent. This is more violent. This is
Nice.
more gory. So it is not for, the faint of heart.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I will say one thing on you're talking about foil and stock and supply. And I mentioned this actually when I talked to Connor McCurry last month uh, about the Last Witch. And even when I was reading today, I was reading We Only Find Them When They're Dead. I was reading issue 5. And the one thing I do love, and this is a really nerdy thing, but you'll appreciate it, I'm sure, and every comic book fan will appreciate it. There's some books where you pick up and you're like, what is this paper? Like, what did I just pay $5.50 for? Right. And then things like Last Witch or We Only Find Them When They're Dead. The stock is thick. It's nice. It really does. It makes the story. It makes you
Thank
want
you.
to actually be involved in the story rather than you're not distracted, essentially is what I'm saying. Right.
Right.
So that's just a nice little side note. I wasn't going to bring that up, but since
Thank
we're
you.
talking about
Thank
supply
you.
chain, yeah, no problem. So I know your time is limited, but I won't. I do have a couple of quick things
Sure.
for you as well. I want to touch on really quick, and again, this might not be road, but again, it's the business of comics and entertainment. When you have a behemoth, a big company like a Disney, uh, buying out companies like Fox and essentially slowly taking properties back or bringing them into their own fold, which is just business sense.
Mhm.
I did some interview with you recently where you were talking about the mouse guard and how you've shifted that over. That's been shifted to Netflix. Netflix is like, yeah, we want this. Let's bring it. How has
That is not true.
shifts like? Oh, my apologies. I misremembered.
That's okay.
Please.
That's okay. But yeah, so Mouse Guard was killed for 2 weeks. I was trying to remember how many weeks it was before it went into production. And
Okay.
so we have not extracted that property. And we have a deal with Netflix for television,
Hmm.
but that was a feature deal that was done with Fox pre-Disney, and Disney came in and bought Fox and then put Mouse Guard on ice.
Oh, okay.
So
Sorry for the
that's okay.
miscommunication on that one.
No worries.
Well, that's good for me to know.
Yeah.
wish I asked you about it earlier before we started recording. No,
No.
and I know in all seriousness, it's I mean, that's actually really good to know. Thank you very much for shedding light on that. And then the other thing too, I want to talk about, and you've said in the past before too about, obviously we're in the business, we meaning you and Boom, and in the business of creating entertainment, and obviously it's a business and it's fun and we love what we do. And I'm not quoting you directly by saying that, by the way, but when you want to bring in creators who are going to sell books, right, and people know the name, and that's all, that just makes sense, and that's great, and as a fan I love that too. Where are there times um, where you decide, okay, you know what, this might not be the industry known name right now, but I love this story so much that on a creator owned side of things, I'm just gonna, I want to push it. How do you wait? Because you've got sales you got to look at down the road. It's like, well, what, we want to put names up there that will draw the orders, right? So
Well, it's interesting because I think um, sort of to give you a glimpse and give you a very honest, raw answer to what you're asking. And I'm going to dovetail this to, I get this question in some variation on Instagram all the time.
Right.
And I hope that my answer is instructive and gives aspiring creators a framework to think about this through, which is that in 2019, we made a huge industry announcement, and we felt at that time that there were too many publishers creating too much content.
Mm.
And when we listened to retail, and we included ourselves in that, so that I am not on a high horse, okay,
Right.
so for
Yeah, of
anybody that
course.
is misconstruing what I'm saying. We looked at ourselves and we looked at our competitors, and we felt like everybody was putting out too much stuff. And that's what the retailers were saying. And we were listening to them. And so we made an announcement that we were going to cut our line by 15%, and we did. Now, if you think about cutting your paycheck by 15%,
Yeah.
can I ask you if that's going to hurt?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's, you know, again, we went up 22% in the direct market in 2020, you know, going down in 2019, 22%, right?
Yeah.
And then during COVID, we cut our releases back by 10% again. So that's 25% less output over 24 months. So these are huge cutbacks. And the thing about it is, publishers do not have infinite resources. And so what happens when you take this line and you cut it by a quarter over 2 years is you have fewer slots.
Mm-hmm.
And then with slots, think about, well, there's the Kieran Gillen slot, right, which is Once and Future. And then you got the James Tynan slot. But James Tynan doesn't have just one slot. He's got two. He's got Wind, and he's got Something Is Killing the Children.
Right.
And then you get to Al Ewing, and you get to Tom Taylor. You see where I'm going with this?
Oh yeah, totally.
And then you've got Power Rangers, right? So you start to stack these things up and the slots fill.
Mm-hmm.
And so quite often we're in a circumstance where we don't have the ability to even, you know, look at people that don't have much of a profile because
Right.
there's no room, you know. And beyond sort of the idea of let's take a shot, you know, I've been doing this for 15 years, and we have won Diamond's version of Best Publisher, or I think the term is Publisher of the Year. We've won it 9 times out of the past 11 years.
Amazing.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
and I don't say that to be like, look at me. What I mean
Of course
is,
not.
it's I have the list of original talent that Boom has authored and broke in the business is extensive. We were the first people to publish Russell Dalterman, who has gone on to become a huge creative force at Marvel, and of course did the Jane Foster Thor stuff with Jason Aaron. We broke Raphael Albuquerque, who, you know, did American Vampire and is one of the biggest, best comic book artists in the business. And the list is pretty extensive of fresh talent that we've broken in the business. But we're in a position now where, you know, we don't have a lot of slots, and there's a lot of very high profile creators we're excited to engage with. And there's a lot of big licenses that we have. And we've got to be super judicious and tactical and specific with what we do. And, you know, we got a lot more mouths to feed. So
Right.
I can't take the chances I could take when I was, you know, when it was 3 of us in a room.
Yeah.
You know, got to feed
That's
the army.
That's a great answer. Thanks for shedding light on that.
It's the truth.
I love.
Yeah.
And you know what? It makes complete sense, right? I get it. And you know, when you're talking about, I mean, you guys are filling them up really nicely. Like the stuff that's cranking out is just like, I go to my local comic shop and I look on the wall, and it's just that the Boom stuff looks gorgeous, and other properties where you'd think it should look good, and I'm not going to say names because I love comics all around, but there's times where you're like, oh, what is happening here? what is that compared to this, right? And you know, I'm sure we all do it.
We have an incredible editorial staff, and they are just so creative and smart. And, you know, one of the things that I think is just really special about this team of people that do all this creative work, you know, you look at someone like Daphne Plevin, who she's editing Power Rangers, and what she is keeping that title monthly when it's a very difficult title to get out the door because it requires a lot of licensor approvals. And we're mucking about with the mythology. You know, like we're not content to stay within the confines of the original TV show. We keep extending it. We created a new Green Ranger. We created Lord Draken. There's the Ranger Slayer. I mean, we're doing all sorts of new stuff, which gives everybody hives, because what if you do it
Mhm.
wrong and it turns into a scandal? And what happens is she finds these incredible artists like Simone Di Meo, that or Daniele Di Nicuolo, and finds these amazing artists on these projects, and then we spin them off of Power Rangers and put them on We Only Find Them When They're Dead or
Yeah.
Seven Secrets. And then she's now screwed herself, right? Because she's editing Seven Secrets, but now she didn't have anybody to draw Power Rangers. And so she's got to go find a new Power Rangers artist.
Right.
And so, you know, the creativity of finding, you know, these different talents and, you know, fostering it and laying it into the schedule to fill the slots in a way that's predictable and creates a strong publishing schedule so that we have something on the racks that's exciting every week. I mean, my team does an amazing job. I can't do any of that. They make me look like a genius. You know, I cheer them on and just try to present new challenges and try to land more exciting projects so that we can do more exciting work. But you know, all the things you're talking about is that's my team. It's Daphne and it's Eric and it's Sierra and it's Shannon and it's all these people I've been working with for so long that I love so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing team, and it takes, and I say this in all sincerity, it takes a fantastic leader to call out their team when they should be called out, and that's great that you just did. Um, you
Are
know,
my heroes.
yeah, and I will say, and I'll be quick about it, but on a personal note, I do love the way that you're a busy guy, and you know I do love the way that how engaged you are on the social channels, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or what have you. I know you know you've shared some things that I've put out there, and that's always great, you know, to have that, especially from, you know, it's a solo shop here, right? I've got a good friend of mine, Michael Worthen, who writes for us. He's down in California, and so it's not just solo, but he writes as well, and he's great. But to mention him. But I noticed your background is obviously from a convention look there. I hope that one day we can all get back to a convention, and you know, as some have called it, the great reconnect. It'll just there'll be, I think there'll be, depending on the situation, maybe there'll be more hugs than signings, but or a bit of both. But Ross Richie, CEO of Boom Studios, hey, thank you again for taking the time, and I really appreciate it. It's great meeting you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.